welcome back to this podcast of the Classic Games with your host, Autumn Thompson, and my co-host,
Ava Kavanitz.
So today on this episode, we're going to go to the classic baseball games. So we have two games for everybody. Ava, do you want to tell us about these games?
The first game we're going to talk about is the 2016 Cubs and Indians World Series, and then we're going to shift over to the 2017 World Series of the Astros versus the Dodgers.
So both these games, the Astros-Dodgers World Series in 2017 and then the Cubs versus Indians game in 2016, in our view, I think they're pretty, classic games. And not just, MLB, but mainly in sports history. I know with, the Astros and Dodgers World Series, Hurricane Harvey hit Houston that year. So I know with the Astros, they brought that home, for their fans and just going off of that with the Cubs, too.
So let's start with the Cubs versus Indians. The Cubs had previously beaten the Dodgers in the NCLS 4-2 to go on to face the Indians for the World Series championship. But it didn't start out so hot as the Cubs lost to the Indians in the first game of that series. But then they came back from a 3-1 deficit to beat the Indians and win the World Series.
Yeah, wow. I just, could imagine, Game 7 of that World Series and, them going extra innings, well, really just one extra inning in the 10th inning to win. And, with the Cubs MVP and mainly the World Series MVP, Ben Zobrist, he was the first Cub to win the MVP trophy because the last time they were in the World Series, they didn't have that trophy or award. And he drove home the go-ahead run in the 10th inning during Game 7. So that was probably really, really exciting and just going, the fans finally saw them win a World Series. And I think I saw on Twitter or something how this old man saw them, when he was, a little kid in, the 1930s or something, now them finally winning a World Series. So that could just really mean, a lot just for that one fan.
And you can imagine what the city life was like that night, finally winning after 100 years.
Bet. Yeah, that was probably just a credible World Series, them coming from a 3-1, losing, then coming back in and winning it. But now going into our next classic game is the 2017 World Series of the Houston Astros and the Los Angeles Dodgers. So I was pretty hyped. My Dodgers finally made it in to a World Series, and I couldn't be much more hyped about that. But, they didn't come out with a pretty good chance, and I was pretty sad about that.
Yeah, so 9 weeks prior to the Houston Astros winning the World Series for the first time in franchise history, Hurricane Harvey happened in Houston. And being a Houstonian, I got to witness it firsthand.
Houstonian? What? That's what you guys call yourselves?
Yes, I'm a Houstonian, loud and proud. So seeing Harvey and what it did to the city and the devastation everyone was in, the Astros were kind of the only thing to take people's minds off of what was going on. So to extend that series to 7 games and then win in LA 5-1 Game 7 was just something that really helped out the city for a little bit and, brought some light and happiness back after just the dark and sadness that was going on for those couple weeks. And George Springer actually hit 5 home runs in that series.
Yeah. I think he almost tied I think he did tie the record for most home runs in a World Series. The last time I think I saw was when Chase Utley was in the World Series with the Philadelphia Phillies back in, I don't know what year, but I know he tied the record too. So I think George Springer was coming up a close one on that one. Wasn't he? He was named MVP of that World Series, and honestly, he deserved it. He played a phenomenal whole season, really, with the Houston Astros, and he was really fun to watch, and he just did really good things when he went up in the box. He was just seeing the ball correctly, and even when he was out in the outfield, he just played an incredible World Series game.
Well, what's even more interesting is in an article I found, I believe on MLB.com, it talks about how during that series, the players were very concerned about what their houses and their families, what kind of state they were in, because, they lived there too. So Harvey was going to affect them as well. But, they focused up and went on to win the series for the city of Houston. And
that's crazy. Knowing, playing a game and knowing, oh man, my house is probably flooded right now and with mold all over or something, and them coming to win the World Series. But, let's talk about this, how, Houston Astros player Yuli Gurriel almost got suspended in the World Series because he was making racial comments to all Asian Americans, kind of pointing out to Dodgers pitcher Yu Darvish at the time. What were your thoughts about that one, Ava?
I think it's kind of insensitive and very un-PC in the kind of world we live in today.
Yeah.
And being a player of that stature, you should really know better.
Yeah,
You're a grown
definitely.
adult. Don't be doing all that.
And
you're
when
on
you're-
national
yeah.
TV.
And when you're playing up in the major leagues, you have cameras all over you. Of course you're going to be caught. Even he was in the dugout when he was making those racial, faces. And what I really thought, I'm kind of a little bit biased here, but I was really hoping he was going to get suspended from the rest of the World Series games. But instead, he was only out in the beginning of the 2018 season. So that kind of sucked. But going into Game 7, I remember seeing him tipping off his cap to Yu Darvish. But honestly, I think actions are a lot more than words. And, you could say sorry all you want, but you still made those actions. So I thought that was, pretty wow. But now, with the Astros and that Dodgers World Series, Astros came out on top, winning, going into Game 7. Many Astro fans were just over the moon about it. I bet you were, huh?
Yeah, it was pretty awesome, to see that happen for us. It was the first championship that the Astros had won, and it was so significant that we even had the opportunity to skip school the day of the parade and go to the
awesome.
parade because it was such a big deal. Yeah.
Wow. LAUSD schools will never do that, but maybe this year, because it might be a matchup in this World Series of the 2019 postseason has officially started, and many predictions are that it's going to be another matchup of the 2017 World Series. So let me ask you, Ava, who do you think is going to go? Who do you think is going to be in the AL representing them or representing the NL?
I think the Astros will go on to the World Series again this year. They were the first team to 100 wins this season, which, if I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong. I'm pretty sure that happened in the 2017 season as well. So if that's correct, maybe there's a little pattern going that the Astros can go on to win it again. And actually, Houston legend Mattress Mac has already made a $3.5 million bet on the Astros to win the 2019 World Series.
That's crazy. Wow. So, just going with my opinion, I think it's going to be Houston Dodgers. One again, because they're the teams that are coming out on top. But, the Dodgers do have competition in the way with them playing the Nationals right now. The Nationals pitching rotation has been pretty on set compared to with the Dodgers pitching rotation. But, the Dodgers got those rookies, and those rookies, man, they're just carrying the team. And, how great would that be if the rookies, their first season in the major leagues, just come out with a World Series win? Dodgers, I think they've changed a lot since their last two appearances in the World Series. But, maybe third time's a charm. They could actually come out on top, but I don't know. The Astros will be definitely a hard team to beat. Definitely, I think, a Game 7, in all honesty.
Well, I guess these Astro and Dodgers fans will have to wait and see. But that's it for today's episode of Classic Games, talking about the Astros versus Dodgers and the Cubs versus Indians. Thank you for joining us, and hope to see you next episode.